Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Tommy Gilmore with Noisy Bird Digital Marketing. I'm excited to be joined today. This is Jesse Curtis from Midnight Services and all of his other businesses, but today we're going to be talking about Midnight Services. So if you haven't watched Spotlight Southern Utah before, I'm here with a new business owner every week. We talk to some of the great business owners here in Southern Utah. And I'm excited today because we're actually live on his dirt lot, his work site here. We've got some stuff going on in the background. You might hear it, see stuff happening in the back. But Jesse, I'm excited to chat today, so thanks for letting me come.
Yeah, thank you.
So Jesse, tell people a little bit about Midnight Services. How long have you been in business? What made you want to start the business? All that good stuff.
We've been in the dirt hauling business, aggregate mostly, for about 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
We originally started it because of one of our other companies. We struggled getting material. We wanted our own truck to be able to get dirt when we want it, road base when we want it, and it turned into what it is now, I guess.
That's awesome. So you kind of saw a need within your own company, and you said, hey, maybe if I'm feeling this pain, somebody else is feeling the pain.
Correct. Exactly.
And then what was the process like to go out and get equipment and kind of get that started? Was it pretty easy because you knew it already, or were there any challenges there?
Oh no, it's very difficult. The biggest challenge was we started with equipment that we could afford. And then, older things break more, so we had to go with newer stuff.
Yep.
That was our biggest challenge probably from the start.
Yeah.
Was starting with junk and growing to newer equipment and nicer things. Was that your question?
Yep. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I think a lot of us face that, right? When we're first starting a business, we have what we need, but we can't quite get it. So we just kind of get what we can afford.
Do what you can do.
Yep, you do what you can do, and then you make do. And I think that's part of the fun of entrepreneurship is like, hey, here's this gap of what I need and what I have. How do I fill that gap?
Exactly.
Right? You got to get creative.
And that gap grows differently as you grow and
as your finances hopefully grow.
Yeah, scaling is the very biggest trick with business. In my opinion.
Totally. Yeah. So talking about scaling, we were talking a little bit off camera. You feel like marketing is your strong suit, right? Like you feel like you can grow your business, you can talk about it. What do you feel like makes you successful in marketing your business, and what things have you done that have been successful for you?
I would say people like real. So I feel like I'm real. Even if it's what they don't want to hear or whatever it ends up being, they want the real, and people can sense if it's real or if you're just feeding them full of BS,
Yeah.
I think that's my strongest suit, is just being real with them.
Going out, talking about your business, telling anybody that'll listen, but doing it in a real way that really represents you and your business, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah, and something else that I like, you guys have a really noticeable, your logo's really good, it's really clean. As a marketer, I really like it. And you've got it on
important.
Yeah, and you've got it on all your equipment.
Correct. And it's money well spent. You get a good graphic designer, a good guy to work with you and put your ideas on paper, trailers, trucks. It's worth every penny.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that I feel like, especially here in Cedar City, but Southern Utah as a whole, I think a lot of businesses miss the mark on their branding.
100%.
They don't know, hey, I have a logo and it's on my guy's shirt, so that's our branding, that's our marketing, right?
Yep.
So what would you say to somebody like that that's like, I don't know how to build a brand, I don't know what that takes. Like, what efforts have you gone to make that happen? Obviously the truck wrap and stuff like that, but what's the mentality behind all that?
My opinion on it is, a lot of people want to personalize their business, which is great, but by personalizing, their first step to doing that is using their initials, or them and their wife, such as me. J&J Dirt Hauling doesn't sound as catchy, and you can't run with it as much as you can a name. At the beginning, it takes the personal feeling out of it, but that's my take on it, is the initials and just the A plus window cleaning, A plus, back when there was phone book days, A plus was right at the top. That was a great idea. Now it's Google, you You want something that people search. You want people to wear your shirts and hats because it's cool. It doesn't just say Jesse's Trucking, you know? And that's my take on it. I don't think one way or another is right, but that's just my take.
Yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. You know, it's a digital age. People consume things a lot differently than they did even 15, 20 years ago. You know, you're talking about the phone book, but even Google's changed over the last 15, 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, as people go more online, the big thing is, oh, I remember seeing those guys, you know, I've seen their trucks the last 6 years just sporadically. I've seen their logo places. I've seen their trucks doing stuff. Like, I've seen all this stuff. And now when I need them, that's who comes to mind for
visualize
that
the
service.
image.
Yeah.
The logo itself.
Yeah. And in marketing, we call that top of mind or top of your funnel awareness. And there's a ton of value there, but it's hard to always measure the return that you get from that.
Sure.
But so you talked about marketing. You feel like that's a strong suit. Absolutely. You guys have done a great job with that. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you faced in, you know, starting this business, working with people, stuff like that. Like, what do you feel like has been one or two of the biggest challenges with Midnight Services that you've had to overcome?
Probably the biggest challenge is kind of what we talked about, equipment. That's, you know, you buy an old truck, you're always working on it.
Yeah.
We buy new trucks, you have more bills.
Yeah.
But you're not always working on it. So that's the biggest challenge of what do you weigh, you know, what do you decide to do, you know, especially with this, there's a lot of tires and fuel. You have to
ongoing
pick and
maintenance
choose
costs.
what direction are you going, you know, and try to pay guys as good as you can without overpaying them to where you're messing with the market. And I mean, that's a big struggle to me. I'm an overthinker a little bit, but that's probably one of the biggest.
Yeah, I think it's important with any business. You know, you say you're an overthinker, I'm also an overthinker. I think most people in entrepreneurship, you can't let it freeze you, but you have to overthink stuff. You have to always be analyzing, always be like, what is working, what isn't working. And so, you know, you're talking about equipment. I think a lot of people in Southern Utah relate to this. If you're a business owner, you know that you have to weigh, hey, my biggest thing is I need it to work when I need it to work, right? If I buy an older piece of equipment, I have to cheap out a little bit, but then I'm losing jobs or I'm losing time on the job and it's pushing my schedule out. I've got to pay guys while they're just sitting at Jiffy Lube fixing whatever.
Exactly.
Like that doesn't, you know, I'm losing money there.
Exactly.
And so you have to start to balance those things out and say, okay, maybe I get this newer thing. I have to pay a few grand a month extra for this thing, but can I make that up in not losing time off the job and not having guys sit around? And you have to figure out, how do I justify this 100%. A little bit?
And I have, my wife calls it a gift of justifying anything, but I honestly feel like certain things are you spend the money on. Marketing is 100% worth the money. Obviously, you can't afford it when you first start, but like it is worth every penny to brand. It's all part of your branding.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people struggle. The thing that's kept me able to do what I do is because I can brand that way, but it's all the other things that help hold me back still.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of things that everyone has their struggles, and that's probably mine's everything else on the other side of things.
Some of the other administrative tasks and
I feel like I
that.
can talk to people, I can relate to them. I've gone through a lot of stuff, and people like talking to people they know. That's why you become friends with people, you know.
Yeah.
But it's everything else. That's why my wife is. You have to have that other strong person, whether it's someone you hire, whether you can somehow convince them to marry you, whatever happens there. There's no way I would ever do everything I do without that person. It doesn't have to be your wife.
Yeah.
In my case, it's my wife. I got lucky, but someone on the back office.
Yeah.
Someone that's got your side, more or less.
Yeah. And I do the same thing. My wife is our accountant.
That's awesome.
And so it's great because we have a date night once a month where we get to sit down, we talk about the finances, and you know, we look over the business stuff, and we call that part of our date night, obviously. But it's nice because, like you said, it's one less thing I have to do that I'm terrible at.
Yeah.
When she took it over, she's like, what have you been doing for this? I'm sure your wife did the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
But it's great to have that sort of support and to find those people that you're like, if I don't have to put 5 hours a month or 10 hours a month into this task that I'm terrible at anyway,
Right.
then I can put 10 extra hours a month into this other task that I'm really good at, that drives the business forward, and I can make money.
Yep.
And I'm good at justifying things that way too, as you can tell, but truly, I think that's the way you have to think as a business owner, is where are my strengths? What are the 2 or 3 things I'm really good at? And how do I pay people to do all the other crap?
Yep, exactly. That fall under the struggles is I could go 300 miles an hour this way, but I got to make sure employees and back office and all that is all following at a decent distance,
Yeah.
and you're not just overextended. I found that with my concrete company. We not overbid, but overcommit.
Overscheduled,
Yeah,
yeah.
we overcommitted to an extreme, and you see your quality go down. And I think don't ever settle for a lower number or to do quality. I think what you think you're worth, and a lot of people don't know what they're worth.
Yeah.
I do numbers every day, and I still don't really know if I was to go get a job,
Yeah.
day job, I wasn't self-employed, I wouldn't know what I'd ask for. I want $25 an hour, do I want $300 an hour,
Yeah.
So that's a big struggle to me.
Is kind of knowing what is this job worth, and I think that it's about reading people, it's about all that, but ultimately I have to also recognize I have my minimum numbers I have to meet.
Yes, you have your costs and what you hope to make, and there's always hidden costs, there's always accidents, there's always oops. I mean, there's so many different things, but that's why some people gamble and self-employed, and some people want to go 9 to 5, and they're fine with that. I tell my wife all the time, there's entrepreneurs, there's star employees, and then there's kind of everyone else.
Yeah.
And you need all of that. Everyone has their strong suits.
Everybody can play a role. It's just like, what role do you want to play, knowing what your strengths are.
Exactly.
Well, Jesse, this has been really awesome. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you guys have a lot going on.
Oh, no worries.
I'm sure that people can hear it on the thing here, but the last question I like to ask people is, if you could go back, I know that this has been in business 6 years, but go back to day one of, hey, I'm going to start my first business, right? Like, what do you wish you knew? What piece of advice do you wish you could have given yourself, knowing what you know now?
I think the biggest thing, honestly, is the back office side. You think cash is great, you think less taxes, you think everyone always thinks that that's the best. If I could go back, I would love to show a track record or a paper trail from day one.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a paper trail up until my wife came along. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was just, everything was to a certain point.
Yeah.
I sold a business. I could have sold it for a lot more, but I didn't have a paper trail past a certain point
Okay.
to say, yeah, no, I promise this is good. Like, to actually show,
Yeah.
because everyone thinks they're valued higher than they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing, is just pay the taxes, pay the man.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy for someone like me to say that, but that's what I would tell my 20-year-old self.
Uh-huh.
That would definitely be it.
Yeah, I was actually reading a book called, I think it's Exit Rich, something like that. And it's talking about a lot of that principle. It's saying, hey, it might feel nice to, write off everything that you can. And if your goal is never to exit, sure, go for it. But if there's even an ounce in your mind that you're like, hey, if this is worth $1 million, I'm willing to sell it, or even $500,000, I'm willing to sell it. If there's a number that you have in mind that you'd be willing to sell your business for, don't take every write-off that you can.
Exactly.
Like, you have to show that you're profitable, and ultimately, if you're profitable, you have to pay a little bit, right? And it sucks, it hurts. I just had a $12,000 tax bill I had to pay.
And I tell my wife that all the time. I say, I don't care if we pay $1 million in taxes, because that means we made how many million, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, I wasn't thinking about that at 19 years old, it was sweet. I got cash today, cool, I can eat tomorrow.
Yep.
And everyone kind of gets in that boat, but I think people that are wanting to go out on their own and do things have the upper hand, because they're not. Me, I was practically homeless. I mean, I had a place to sleep and stuff, but I didn't pay my bills. I couldn't pay my bills.
Yeah.
So I was desperate.
Uh-huh.
And so if people are starting something and they're not desperate, they have a huge upper hand, because they can take their day job and they're not starting from zero. they can kind of start it on the side, work it out good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, along with what you're saying, this is unsolicited advice from Tommy from Noisy Bird, but if you're planning on paying taxes, save money for taxes, right? Like, that was my first big mistake, was I didn't realize, like, I knew there was going to be a tax bill, but I just thought, oh, I'll just pay it.
Yep.
Right? Like, my first year, I was like, oh, I don't have any money set aside to pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, my number is 15%. Set aside 15% of what you make every month in your business, put it into a high yield savings account, so it makes you, you know, a couple extra $1,500 a month, but that's your tax. Don't touch it. It's not yours. The government will come get it if you don't pay it.
Yeah.
So put it aside and pay your taxes ultimately. Like,
Gotta pay it anyway.
yeah, it's gonna get paid one way or the other.
I agree.
So, well, Jesse, this was super fun. I appreciate your time. Thanks for letting me come talk to you.
Of course.
If people want to come learn more about you, do you want them to check your website, Facebook, call you? What's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Best way is, check our website. I mean, if you just want someone to talk to, call me, but my phone rings constantly.
Yeah.
It's website or Facebook. You know, we try to keep our Facebook current with stuff we're going. You know, there's only so many loads of dirt you can see dumped in a spot to where it's exciting. So we try to change it up. You know, we try to make things feel like it's not just, all right, well, there's a load of dirt.
Here's this again.
Cool, that's great. You know, we try to make it, you know, that was part of our branding idea. You know, all of our trucks have girls' names. You know, so we call them our girls. You know?
Yeah.
And we try to do things like that to make it not just there's another dump truck going down the road. You know.
Yeah. It's, oh, there's Sheila.
Yeah,
riding down the road
exactly.
or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Little pirate age
Yep.
stuff. That's cool.
Yep.
Well, awesome, Jesse. I'm going to put the link for his website down in the description, guys. If you guys need any hauling happened or just want to learn more about his business, go check it out. Thank you so much for watching Spotlight Southern Utah. I do appreciate those of you guys that watch. If you'd like your business to be featured, submit a request or DM me, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you.